Hey guys, today we're going to work on general equivalencies, equivalent fractions, converting to decimals, mixed numbers to improper fractions or fractions greater than one. Just general all mixed equivalencies, because sometimes we get a number in one form and we need to convert it to another form in order to solve a problem. Okay, so grab a piece of paper if you don't have one yet and go ahead and follow along and think with me. We're going to start off with the mixed number 1 2/5. All right, I already know that this is a fraction greater than 1, right? And I think to myself, well, how many fifths are inside of one whole, right? And I know that one whole is equal to 5/5. And then I also have that remaining 2/5, right? So I could rewrite this fraction as 5/5 plus 2 more fifths, or get it into a total of 7/5, right? And so when I see a mixed number, I think about rewriting it. And sometimes I don't have to always write this on paper. I can do this thinking work in my head to convert it into an improper fraction, or a fraction that we know is greater than 1. Let's try that with 3 3/5. Okay, so just like up here, you want to be thinking, how many fifths makes a whole? I have 3 wholes, right? So if I'm going to rewrite each of my 3 wholes here as 5/5, and I've got another 5/5 and another 5/5. There's my 3 wholes, 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 5/5. And then I need to go ahead and add in my 3/5 that's remaining, right? For a total of 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18 fifths. Right? Let's try the same one. Same thing with 4 9/10, right? So we think about, I've got 4 groups of 10/10, right? Because each whole is broken up into 10. So I can rewrite my number 4 here as 10/10 plus 10/10 plus 10/10 plus 10/10 plus my 9 more tenths, right? To equal 10, 20, 30, 40, 49 tenths. Okay, so let's stop and just think about that right now. We can convert it in the other direction too, all right? So let's say that we had 104 25ths. 104 25ths. Well, I know that 104 is greater than 25, right? And if each of my wholes is broken up into 25s, I want to go in the opposite direction. I know that I can break up 104 into a certain number of groups of 25ths, and then I'll have some left over, right? And so when I think of 25, I think of 25 cents. I think of a quarter, right? And I know a quarter is worth 25 cents. And a dollar is 100 cents, right? And so a dollar is 100 cents. So I know I'm going to have 4 groups of 25 and then 4 more. Or if you think about it as 25 25ths plus 25 25ths plus 25 25ths plus 25 25ths. There's 100 25ths right here, right? Or 1, 2, 3, 4 wholes, and then I have 4 more. So I have 4 wholes and then 4 25ths remaining. Okay? So let's work to convert some of these numbers we've already generated into decimals. Alrighty. We can think about our rules of equivalent fractions to convert some of these into decimals. Let's start to begin with, I'm going to box this out so you can follow my line of thinking on 4 9/10. That's 49 tenths, right? Well, this can be tricky because we've got to look back and think, if I know the tenths column, here's my wholes, right? My tenths column, my hundredths column. Well, I'll make these lines instead of zeros. Okay, so here's where my wholes are. And then tenths, hundredths. All right, remember it's when we're less than 1, okay? We already know that 49 tenths is greater than 1, right? We started here with 4 9/10. So I can't put 49 into the tenths column, right? And so a lot of kids will just say, okay, well, here's 49 tenths. But we know better than that, right? When we have that 49 tenths, that's actually 49 hundredths. We've got the 9 in the hundredths column and the 4 in the tenths column. So be careful for that, right? You know that it's greater than 1. Our numerator is greater than our denominator, right? So I think again about how many wholes are there. Well, there's 4 wholes, so I'll put 4 here, right? And I can't put 2 digits, both the 4 and the 9, the 49, into the tenths column, right? So that's why, again, it's helpful to be able to go from an improper fraction or fraction greater than 1 back into a mixed number, because when I read it like this, oh, I have 4 wholes and then 9/10. Okay, I can put 9 into the tenths column. So I have 4 9/10, right? Okay, so let's try that with some of these other ones. Let's take a look here at 1 whole and 2/5. Well, there's no such thing as a fifths column, right? And so that's why it's helpful to think about equivalent fractions. When we think about our place value, again, we have wholes. And then our decimal point, tenths, hundredths. Okay, so we're constantly going to be going back and thinking about that. Well, is there a way that I can convert those 2/5 into tenths or hundredths? There is, right? Remembering our equivalent fraction rule is we can multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number, right? And so let's take a look here at 7/5. Is there a number I can multiply 5 by to get to 10 or to get to 100? Yeah, if you're thinking multiply by 2, right? So I can multiply 7/5 times 2/2, right? And again, this works because 2/2 is equal to 1, right? And that's why our equivalent fraction rule works, because when we're multiplying the numerator and denominator by the same number, then we're really multiplying by 1, and anything times 1 is itself, right? So I can convert this then into 14 tenths. Or I could be thinking about 1 2/5, right, is equal to 1 4 tenths, right? If I just change this 2/5 into 4 tenths right there. So if I were to write this as a decimal, we would be at 1 whole and 4 tenths, right? Let's try that with 3 wholes and 3/5, right? Right up here, we multiply the numerator and denominator by 2 halves, or 1, right? So we can do that same thing here, right? So if I got 3 wholes, right, and then 3/5, there's no such thing as a fifth column, but I can convert my 3/5 into 6 tenths, right? by thinking about 3/5 times 1/2 or 2/2 is equal to 6/10. So there's my 3 6/10 right there. What about 4 and 4/25? Is there a number I can multiply 25 by to get to either 10 or 100? There is. We can multiply 25 by 4, right? Because again, I think about 25 cents is equal to a quarter. And there's 4 quarters in a dollar, or 100 cents. So I can go ahead and think about this as 4 wholes, right? And if I multiply my 4/25 each by 4, for multiplying by 1, 25 times 4 is equal to 100, and 4 times 4 is equal to 16, right? So now I'm at 16 hundredths. 4 and 16 hundredths. Okay, so friends, be thinking about ways that you can convert mixed numbers into improper fractions by thinking about rewriting them and how many fifths are inside of here and then adding the more, right? We can be using our equivalent fraction rules to convert and multiplying the numerator and denominator by the same number. And it's helpful for when you want to change a number that has a 5 as the denominator, or really any other number that's not a 10th or a 100th, as long as it's a multiple of that. Okay, so have a great rest of your day, and make sure that you come back to this video if you need a little bit extra practice as you're working through the remaining part of your independent practice today. All right, friends, thanks for thinking with me.